Okay, so chapter 9, pride. In common parlance, pride is often thought to be a good thing. However, if we take a good look at it, we will see that just like all the other negative feelings we have discussed so far, pride is devoid of love. Consequently, it is essentially destructive. Pride may take the form of over-evaluation, denial, playing the martyr, being opinionated, arrogant, boastful, inflated, one up, haughty, not like haughty, just haughty, holier than thou, vain, self-centered, complacent, aloof, smug, snobbish, prejudiced, bigoted, rigid, patronizing, judgmental, and in milder forms, pigeonholing. So all these things make up pride. Intellectual pride leads to ignorance, and spiritual pride is the main block to spiritual development. Thinking you know it all, and your meditation works best, and that's as good as it. And how can you do that? Because that's wrong. Like you just, yeah, pride. Yes, main block to spiritual development and maturation in everyone. Religious pride by self-identification with the righteous, having the one and only true way, is the basis of all religious wars and rivalry, and dismal occurrences such as the Inquisition. The biggest downfall of all is religious pride and considering oneself entitled to kill others who don't share one's specific beliefs. In all of us, the prideful feeling I have the answers blocks our growth and development. Like if you're always right, you can't learn. It is interesting that the egotistical part of the mind is willing to sacrifice the whole remainder of a person for its own sake. Rather than admit to being wrong, people will literally give up the life of the body itself and sacrifice any aspect of life on that altar of pride. Example, religious wars and crusades. Male pride about those programs that our society considers masculine blocks the emotional and psychological inner development of most men in our society. Like, the machismo meatheads. Like, crying's for pussies, and I don't show emotions, and I gotta be strong, and I gotta carry. I don't know why I'm doing it with that type of accent, but just like, I'm a dude's dude, man. I just rub some fucking dirt in it and I move on my way. Like, I guess that's what he's talking about. But that type of pride, and when that pride goes, some people get lost because they don't know how to deal with their emotions because they thought they never had them. Anyways, let me continue. Some women are now joining the ranks of chauvinism, which only compounds the problem and intensifies the battle of sexes. The vulnerability of pride. The prideful person is constantly on the defensive because of the vulnerability of inflation and denial. Conversely, the humble person cannot be humiliated, for they are immune to vulnerability. Having let go of pride, in its place, they have this inner security and self-esteem. I'm working on that. Many people try to substitute pride for genuine self-esteem. However, genuine self-esteem does not actually arise until pride is relinquished. So it's like you can be proud of your work, but you're not attached to it. So if somebody was like talking shit about it, you wouldn't care because it's just coming from a place of truth. Pride is like when I talk about as left and someone like disagrees or challenges me on it, I used to get like kind of triggered, like, defensive. But then it's like I had to ask myself, being like, is as left truth? And to me, it is. It's for a lot of people, it is that I've taught. Yeah, so I can talk about it freely because I know it's a truth. I know forgiveness heals all emotional pain. I know empathy can get you to forgiveness. I know you can't stop really anything until you accept it, like on a pain level. So anyways, I'm getting off track. Until the pride is relinquished. That which inflates the ego does not result in inner strength. On the contrary, increases our vulnerability and overall level of fear. When we are in a state of pride, our energy is dissipated by the constant preoccupation with defending our lifestyle, vocation, neighborhood, clothes, year and make of our car, ancestry, country, and political and religious belief systems. I got a sense of pride. There is a tireless preoccupation with appearance and what other people will think. So there's a constant vulnerability to the opinions of others. It's just like I said, when I was talking about as left, someone would disagree with it, and I would go from a state of like, say, happy, whatever, like the defensive, like anger, like, why don't you get it? And it's kind of like, because I was coming from a place of pride, like, you need to know this. But I've grown. You don't really need to know it. It's up to you, man. You have your own journey. When pride and self-inflation have been relinquished, there's an inner security that takes their place. Just a sense of peace, just a sense of truth. When we no longer feel called upon to defend our image, criticisms and attack from others diminish and finally stop. Like when you just don't give a shit anymore, you just don't really hear it, or you just don't care if it's going on. When we let go of our need for validation, which I had for As Left, did, or to prove ourselves right, like when you give somebody an opinion and they come back like it just in a tone, or they'll just flat out say you're wrong. You're just wrong for what you believe in. This is why, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I used to get defensive over that. Not anymore. Well, 9 times out of 10, no. But everyone's got their breaking point. Yeah, so when we let go of our need for validation, like, I don't care. Like, I'll say something, someone tries to disagree with me, and I'm like, your beliefs don't really, affect mine. Like, they're like, if you believe something else, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, you believe that, so I might have to too. No, I don't give a shit. So neither should you. Just stick to your truth, man. And you know what you believe on Monday doesn't mean you're going to believe it on Friday, because you have an open mind. But just, don't be a judgy asshole to somebody else, though, Yeah. So this brings us to one of the basic laws of consciousness. Defensiveness invites attack. Think about that. If you're always walking around defensive, you're almost looking for it in people's conversations to like offend you. But when you have none of it, you're just like, I really don't give a fuck what Barbara's saying. I couldn't care. So, an examination of the nature of pride facilitates the letting go of it, as it is no longer value. It is seen for what it is. In truth, it's weak. It's the dictum. Pride goeth before the fall. Prevails. Pride is thin ice, a poor substitute for that rock-like real strength that comes from courage, acceptance, or peace. Like when you just accept something, people will disagree with you, man. Like they don't see it your way. You don't see it theirs. With just acceptance, you accept their way and you just kind of don't give a shit about their way. Is there such thing as healthy pride? When we talk of healthy pride, we are referring to self-esteem, an inner awareness of one's true value and worth. This inner awareness is different from the energy of pride. Self-awareness of one's true value is characterized by the lack of defensiveness. Like, well, I'm good at this and I'm bad at that, whatever, I'm human. Once we have consciously contacted the truth of our real beingness, the nature of our inner self, with all its true innocence, greatness, and nobility of the human spirit, we no longer need pride. We just know what we are. And this self-knowledge is sufficient for us. That which we truly know never needs defense and is different from the energy of pride that we are discussing in this chapter. Let's look at some of the kinds of pride in which we have programmed in C and how they bear up under examination. Pride of family, pride of country, pride of accomplishment are typical examples that come to mind. Is pride really the loftiest of human emotions? The very fact that is characterized by defensiveness proves otherwise. When we have pride in our possessions or in some organizations with which we identify, we feel obligated to defend them. Pride in our ideas and opinions leads to the endless arguments, conflict, and woe. We don't need any examples of this. A higher feeling state than pride is that of love. Like, yeah, man, your opinion's different, but hey, you're a human being. I love you. Doesn't mean like come over and bang my wife. It's just, I love you. I don't wish you any harm, man. If I can help, I can help. If we love all things noted above, family, country, and accomplishments, that means there is no question of their worth in our mind. We no longer have to be on the defensive. When true recognition and knowledge replaces opinion, which is part of pride, There is no room for argument. Our sheer love and appreciation for something is a solid position that cannot be assailed. Pride, because of its vulnerable position, always implies that somewhere there is a doubt that needs to be cleared up, and the opponent quickly centers on that doubt. When all doubts have been removed, opinions and pride disappear. There's a subtle inference of apology and pride, as though the thing itself was not good enough to stand on its own merit. That which is worthy of our love and respect hardly needs an apologist. Pride infers subtly that there's room for debate and that the worth of something is open to question. When we truly love something and thereby become one with it, it is because we see its intrinsic perfection. In fact, its faults. It's like I love you and your darkness, not spite of your darkness, but and your darkness. That's like true relationships. That's like true growth in like friendship or intimate. Yeah, so in fact, its faults are part of the parcel of its perfection. For all that we've seen in the universe is in the process of becoming. And in that process, its perfect evolution is part of that perfection. Thus, the half-unfolded flower is not an imperfect flower that needs defense. On the contrary, its blossoming is proceeding with precise perfection according to the laws of the universe. Likewise, each and every individual on the planet is unfolding, growing, learning, and reflecting that same perfection. We might say that the unfoldment of evolutionary process is proceeding precisely according to cosmic laws. One of the drawbacks about the position of pride is that we have said is the vulnerability. Vulnerability then invites attack. Therefore, in society, we witness that prideful people draw criticism, and their vulnerability is what accounts for the saying, pride goeth before the fall. In the biblical account, it was Lucifer's pride that was his Achilles heel, despite the great standing that he had acquired. Humility, kind of like the opposite of pride. The attempt to suppress pride out of guilt simply does not work. Like, I shouldn't be happy about it, or I shouldn't be proud of the trophies I've gotten, whatever. So it is not helpful to label the energy of pride as a sin and suppress it into ourselves out of guilt. So to hide it. Or pretend that we do not experience it. Like, oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about, but stop talking about it. What happens is that energy subtly takes on a new form known as spiritual pride. We do not feel comfortable in the presence of those who are prideful, therefore pridefulness blocks communication and the expression of love. Although we love those who are prideful about specific accomplishments, we love them spite of their pride and not because of it. Feeling guilty about pride as a spiritual sin only locks it in, and and as we have said, it's not really the answer. The real answer is merely to let go of it by examining its true nature. Once we see that pride for what it is one easier emotions to surrender to. And then we can ask ourselves, what is the purpose of pride? What is the payoff? Why do I seek it? For what does it compensate? What do I have to realize about my true nature in order to let pride go without a feeling of loss? And the answer is rather obvious. The smaller we feel within, the more we have to compensate for that inner sense of inadequacy, unimportance, and valuedness by the substitution of the emotion of pride. The more we surrender our negative emotions, the less we will rely on the crutch of pride. In its place, there will be a quality of the world calls humility, and that we subjectively experience as peacefulness. True humility is distinct from the paradox of pride in one's humility. It's false modesty, seen frequently in the public arena. False modesty is the pretense of self-diminishment, with the longing that others will recognize the accomplishments that one is so proud of, but too proud to brag about it openly. It's like when you're trying to show off someone and no one gives a shit and you're upset about it. That's pride. But if you just create something and it comes from a place of just love creation, even if it comes from a place of pain, but it's still your truth, you're not looking for attention, you're just expressing it. You really don't give a shit about the judgment, so therefore pride is not there, because there's just a sense of love and acceptance for what it is, or for who you are, and for what you're doing. Having pride that you take first or second or third, whatever, like that's all good. We got all have goals. It's like, but when you realize that if like I said, about if your pride can hurt you, like someone says something, or I can't even think of an example right now, but if if you're proud of something and someone talks shit about it or whatever, like if it can hurt you in a way in that attachment, then there's pain attached to it, and that's pride. That's the emotion he's talking about. All right. Yeah. So, with the longing that others will recognize the accomplishments that one is so proud of, but too proud to brag about it openly. It's like, recognize this, because if I talk about it, I look like I'm bragging. True humility cannot be experienced by the person who is said to possess it, because it's not an emotion. As we have said before, the truly humble cannot be humbled, because they're humble. Makes sense. They are immune to humiliation. They have nothing to defend. There is no vulnerability, and therefore they are truly humble and do not experience critical attacks by others. Instead, a truly humble person sees the critical verbalization by another person as merely a statement of the other person's inner problems. Projection. For instance, if somebody were to say, "You think you're pretty good, don't you?" What's the truly humble person would see is that the other person has a problem with envy. And the question has no basis in reality in the first place. There's nothing to be offended by and no need to react. In contrast, for a prideful person, this question would be viewed as an insult and lead to hurt feelings, verbal comebacks, or even a violent end in some cases. It's like angry people when they hear about as left and they hear the word love, which they got a big fucking problem with, or forgiveness. No, you can't forgive it. Like, the only people who argue with me about forgiveness are bitter people. And bitter people, they literally, like, when you're talking to them on the phone, an example of a bitter person is like, "Hey, how's your day going?" "It's all right, but this morning sucked. It's just like last week. It's probably gonna be like this week. I'm just too tired and whatever, but I gotta pull along because it's me," and blah, blah, blah. Like that right there. That's a bitter person. And when I talk to those people about forgiveness and empathy, it doesn't register. Does not register. So, because again, they got a sense of pride, like they know best. But I used to have a problem with that. Now it's just like, I just don't give a shit. Like, it's like, you are who you are and I respect it. Like, I may not agree with the shit and the way you're acting, whatever. And yeah, I'll try and help once. And if I get challenged, I'm like, it's just not worth it. But before I'd push it because of a sense of pride, I'd be like, "No, you need to know this. You need to be happier. Like, you're being a fucking idiot." But no, I just, whatever, man. People are at their own stage of growth. And now it's like, because again, as left is truth. If you want to heal your emotional pain and see what that feels like in life, as left is truth. Acceptance, surrender, love, empathy, forgiveness, and tolerance. It's absolute truth. Okay. But again, like, people either get it or they just argue with it. Like, literally fucking arguing with forgiveness and acceptance and shit. Anyways, I'm getting a little off track. So yeah, humility. It's just like when you're humble, like, I've humiliated myself over life a few times. When I was in grade 3, I took a pee under the playground and got caught. That was pretty humiliating. But no, seriously, like, I've done good shit in my life, like helped people or had success and been there for people. But then I've also, like, no, and I wasn't willing to look at it. I had to fix it. Like, or I'm like, because I can't be that person. And because I was trying to deflect, I really didn't even look at, how I felt embarrassed. Because no matter what, I was still carrying around that embarrassment and shame, no matter how much I was trying to change it. So when I finally looked at me and humiliated my own self and just looked at my humility and surrendered my pride, yeah, it felt like shit. But again, the awareness came and I just learned to accept it about me, like, or just changed it immediately. Just being like, I'll never do that again, because I just hate the fucking feeling of it. It really is that simple when you start to look at your dark side. Yes. Okay, we need to move on. Joy and gratitude. Okay, we're still in the chapter of pride, but joy and gratitude. Because pride is sometimes seen as a motivator of achievement, that would be its what would be its higher level substitute? One answer would be joy. What is wrong with joy as the reward for successful achievement rather than pride? Pride carries with it the desire for recognition from others. And consequently, there is a vulnerability to anger and disappointment. Like if you don't get that recognition, you just get pissed and you're fucking disappointed. Disappointment if it's not forthcoming. And at some point, if we achieve a certain goal at the pleasure of enjoyment, love of accomplishment, and the inner joy that brings to us, and we are invulnerable to the reaction of others. Because when you're in a state of love, like when things are just going good and you feel it, you just don't give a shit about what other people say. And it's not like in a screw you way. You're just like, okay, you're just not feeling the way I am, but whatever, bye. And it doesn't even bug you because you're just in a sense of joy and peace and love. That's kind of like true love. True love is like appreciation. We get a little confused or program confused on love is like some type of form of attachment. You need to be mine. I need to be yours. Yeah. So anyways, I'm getting a little off track. So we can recognize our proneness to pain by looking at the kind of reactions we're hoping to elicit from others by our choices and behavior. This includes mannerisms, expressions, style of dress, the kind of possessions we choose, the brand name of car we drive, the kind of home we have, the address at which we live, the schools we have attended or which our children attend, or the labels on the products we buy. In fact, if we look at our current society, we see to what an absurd degree this pridefulness has taken place. Labels are now worn on the outside of many clothes and personal articles. This is 2012, by the way. It hasn't reached the level of rakes and shovels yet, but it could sooner or later. Nobody has thought of it yet, but we could still all carry around rakes and shovels ostensibly, I'm not even going to attempt that word, with designer names emblazoned upon them. This point to another one of the drawbacks of pride, the exploitability to which it exposes us. Pridefulness means that we can be manipulated with great ease. In return for an absurdity, a great deal of money is lifted out of our pocketbooks. The situation is currently comical as that people take great pride in how much they have been exploited. It is a current status symbol among certain circles to brag about how much one is paid for certain things. I don't know people like that. When we remove the glamour from it, we might say that the person was sort of stupid. They really got suckered in or was naive and just didn't know any better. The pride of snobbishness is probably the most supercilious of all. Does ostension really impress? Actually, no. The response that we see of fascination, people get a charge out of the superficial glamour, but underneath they do not truly respect it because they know what it really is. When we settle for pridefulness of ostentation, we impress no one. See, I have no pride in my reading. This dynamic revealed itself during a trip to Canada to visit the home of a wealthy individual who subtly conveyed the price tag of his many possessions. Drake? On the same trip, malnourished Canadian Indian children were seen playing around with huge grain elevators that were filled to overflowing. The grain being held there to manipulate the higher world price through artificial creation of a shortage. As this wealthy person talked of his possessions, images of the children with their thin little legs flashed to mind. Far from being impressed with his wealth, there was sorrow for his sense of values and compassion for the lack of self-worth that forced him to compensate in such a pathetic superficiality. Does this mean we cannot take pleasure in expensive possessions? No, not at all. What we are talking about is pride. The problem is not with what we have possessions, but we have a pridefulness. We have a prideful possessiveness of self-congratulatory attitude about them. It is the attitude of pride that creates the space for fear. The same wealthy man in Canada mentioned above also had an expensive burglar alarm system. Pride, like all other negative emotions, engenders guilt. Guilt engenders fear. Fear means that potential loss. Pride, therefore, always means a loss of peace of mind. Pride, therefore, also means a loss of peace of mind. If I have to show off and I need recognition, that creates a lot of fear and it will create a lot of anger and disappointment. But when I don't give a shit, it creates nothing. I get to keep my own peace. And it's not, it's not out of disrespect. It's just being like, just allowing people to be and not judging their ways. So you can just do your thing. That doesn't mean you don't judge people's thoughts. Like, there's family, friends, there's people taking up your energy and that's cool. But like, just, be a little conscious. The opposite of prideful acquisitiveness is simplicity. Simplicity does not mean poverty of possessions. Rather, it's just a state of mind. Another individual is worth millions of dollars, and yet she holds the title to vast estates and possessions. Yet, as a person, she represents absolute simplicity. Her possessions reflect what the world has brought to her. She takes joy in their beauty. Consequently, never a single criticism is made of her, nor do these express envy. She ain't bragging about it, so why would you get down on her? It is not what we have that matters, but how we hold it, how we frame it in our consciousness and its meaning to us. Incidentally, this woman's entire estate is totally devoid of burglar alarms or watchdogs. Where's this place again? In fact, when this was brought to her attention, she replied, "Oh heavens, if somebody really needed something that much, they could have it." There was a correspondence between the fact that nobody ever stole anything from her and the fact that she was willing to share with others. Her invulnerability to theft was related to her lack of pridefulness about her possessions. Possessiveness and attachment occur as a consequence of pride. Attachment is therefore a potential cause for suffering, because attachment brings about the fear of loss. And with the loss, we go back to apathy, depression, and grief. If we are prideful of a car and somebody steals it, we will experience anguish. Like, oh my God, my car. I love that thing. Oh, I can't sleep. I can't eat. The anguish of pain and suffering. If instead we loosely hold the car, emotionally speaking, being like, insurance will cover it, whatever. Yeah, it was cool, but something better will come along. So you're just not freaking out, depressing yourself and scaring and whatever. And we enjoy its beauty and perfection and we feel grateful for having it. Its loss will bring about only minor disappointment. Yeah, you're not going to be clicking your heels, but you're not going to be laying in bed thinking about it. Gratitude is one of the antidotes of pride. If we happen to be born with a high IQ, we can be grateful for it rather than take pride in it. It's not an accomplishment. We were born with it. If we are grateful for what has been given us, for what has been fulfilled through our God-given talents and endeavors, then we are in a peaceful state of mind and invulnerable to pain. It is a comical curiosity of the human mind to watch how it attaches pride to anything that is prefixed by the word mine. We can have an absurd pride over the most trivial things, and once we see the comedy of that, it is not too difficult to let go of pride, the pride involved. Some people ironically have the vulnerability of reverse snobbery. They take pride in bargains. That's my mom. And thrift store conquests. That was my neighbor. Like, she had boxes like stacked on the driveway because you could barely walk through the hallways. Their personal opinion of people who pay excessive prices for things is that they are all sheep to be sheared, and they rehearse the quote, "A fool is soon parted from his money." And in this thrift store snobby crowd, the status symbol of the incredible bargain. I got this for $2. Do you really need it? It's $2. In fact, they're often in competition with each other to see who will find the best bargains. I don't really hang with people like this. It is funny to observe that an article of clothing hanging in a thrift shop has no value at all until it becomes mine. Instantly, great value is attached to it. The difficult side of prefixing things with the word mine is the pride that goes with the self-ownership. This makes us feel called upon to defend everything we label as mine. We can reduce our vulnerability by letting go of the desire to possess. Instead, just saying mine, we can create a word Not my shirt, but a shirt. Thus, we'll notice, it's like they didn't steal my car, they stole a car. You see how that one goes over. Thus, we will notice that if we view one of our thoughts as an opinion instead of my opinion, you could be like, well, the feeling tones changes. This is what I talk about all the time, is that like we put so much value on our opinions, but our opinions are made up of feelings, and feelings can change at any given moment. So really, a strong opinion is just strong feelings backing, and feelings again can change. So your opinions change. So, yeah. So as an opinion instead of my opinion, the feeling tone changes. Why do people get so hot under the collar about their opinions? It is just because of their sense of mine. If opinions were viewed as instead as only an opinion, there is no longer the vulnerability to prideful anger. I'll keep reading about opinions. If we look at opinions, we will see that they are a dime a dozen. Everybody on the street has thousands of opinions on thousands of subjects, and their opinions change from moment to moment and are vulnerable to every passing whim of fashion, propaganda, and faddism. Today's in opinions is tomorrow's out opinion. This morning's opinion is passé by afternoon. We can ask ourselves, do I want to spread out my vulnerability to attack by so extensively identifying with all these passing thoughts and calling them mine? Everybody has an opinion on everything. So what? When we look at the true quality of opinions, we will stop giving them as so much value. If we look back on our life, we will see that every mistake we've ever made was based on an opinion. We become much less vulnerable if we put our thoughts and ideas and beliefs, which are all opinions, into a different context. We can view them as ideas that we like or dislike. Some thoughts give us pleasure, and so we like them. Just because we like them today doesn't mean we're going to have to go to war over them. We can like a concept so long as it serves us, and when we are getting enjoyment out of it, of course, we discard it quite readily when it's no longer a source of pleasure. When we look at our opinions, we will see that it is primarily our emotions that are giving them any value in the first place. Instead of feeling pride about our thoughts, what is wrong with just loving them? Like good and bad. Like, oh, that was weird. Oh, yeah, because I'm a weird fucking dude, but I love me. So, like, why not love a certain concept because of its beauty, because of its inspirational quality, or because of its serviceability? If we view our thoughts that way, we no longer need the pride of being right. If we hold the same view of our likes and dislikes, we are no longer prone to argumentativeness. For instance, if we love the music of a certain composer, we no longer need to defend it. We might hope that our companion, oh my God, you're going to love this song. Like my son will do that. I'd be like, it fucking sucks. He'd be like, well, you like the beat, right? And I have to give a little leeway because it's like, why don't you like it? And then when he's in a bad mood, I got a song, song fucking sucks. You know I don't like this type of music, but yeah, whatever. So, so my feelings don't get hurt when he doesn't like something, because it comes from a place of love, not pride. So we might hope our companion would also love it, but if not, the worst is that we can feel the mild disappointment in my heart at not being able to share something that we personally value and enjoy. If we try this, we will find that people no longer attack our likes and dislikes and concepts. Instead of defensiveness, what they are getting from us now is just appreciation. They understand that we appreciate certain things, and that is why we think the way we do. But they will no longer criticize or attack us. The worst we'll get perhaps a kidding or quizzical attitude. Where pride is absent, attack is also absent, because you're not setting yourself up for it, so they don't, behavioral patterns. This is very valuable in those areas such as politics and religion. They are so historically prone to illicit argument that they tactically bypassed in polite society. We will find that we love our religion, whatever it might be. No one will attack us. If we are prideful, however, we will have to avoid the entire subject, because anger will quickly arise as a byproduct of pride. When we truly value something and we lift it aloft out of the demeaning target range of argument. We lift it aloft out of the demeaning target range of argument. There you go. No pride in my reading, just a sense of joy and purpose. That which we truly cherish and revere is protected by our own reverence. If we tell somebody that we do something because we get enjoyment out of it, there's really nothing much they can say about it. It's like, I love it. I don't give a fuck what you think. I just love it. Okay. There's nothing much they can say about it, is there? If we infer that we do it because we are right in doing it, we will instantly see their hackles go up. The fuck's a hackle? Because they also have an opinion on what is right. No, you're wrong. And if you argue, you're fucking stupid. Our values, our preferences, we hold them because we love them and enjoy them and get pleasure from them. If we hold them in that context, we will be left in peace to enjoy them. The reason that pride arouses attack is because of the inference of being better than, which is part and parcel of pride. We see many people with dietary regimes about which they're prideful. Oh, you're doing it all wrong, man. You're eating this, you're eating that. It's like, I'm doing good. But I've had that. But I just laugh at it. Before I used to like consume some of my energy and been like, well, I got to defend myself because pride. But now I'm just like, I don't care. We see many people with dietary regimes in which they are prideful. Consequently, they are in constant arguments over the rightness of their dietary regimes and nutritional opinions. You see that shit on social media everywhere. They even try to impose their regimes on family members and friends, touting the moral or health superiority of their dietary practice. In contrast, there are people who follow the same regimens, there you go, because they enjoy doing so, because it makes them feel better, or because it fulfills certain spiritual disciplines consequently, and they're never heard to be in an argument because they all have nothing to defend. If someone tells us that they eat because the way they eat and they enjoy it, there's nothing much we can say about it, is there? If, on the other hand, if they infer that theirs is right way of eating, and by inference that ours is wrong, what they're really saying is that they are better than we are, and that always arouses resentment. If we don't take a prideful stance about our opinions, then we are at liberty to change them. Imagine that our opinions change. What I hate tomorrow, I actually like today. Broccoli comes to mind. How often we have gotten stuck in performing something we really don't want to do because we had foolishly taken a prideful stance on the opinion. Very often we would like to have changed our mind on the direction in which we are going, but we get ourselves boxed in by having taken this prideful position. Like, I can't be wrong. Well, now if I'm wrong, I'm a fool. But it's better just to just hone it, humiliate yourself, allow it, feel it, surrender, forgive yourself. And now you've moved on. You got a new belief and you don't have to carry that shit around with you and no one can bug you about it. Okay. So, very often we would like to have changed our mind toward the direction in which we were going, but we got ourselves boxed in by having a prideful position. That brings up one of the resistances to surrendering the pride. And that is pride itself. In the prideful position, like, it's simple as one time, just when you catch yourself, you're like, okay, I'm being prideful, and surrender to it. Like, it's like nothing magical is going to happen, but you're going to stop getting yourself angry, disappointed. You know, you might have some regret or something, or guilt or whatever. And you surrender to that too, forgive yourself and move on. So we stop fearing it. So, because we fear that if we change our position in a certain matter, the opinion of others about us will adversely be affected. One reason for the need for humility about our opinions is because our opinions change as we get deeper and deeper to any given subject or situation. What seems to be so upon superficial examination often turns out to be quite different when we really get into it. This, of course, is to the dismay of politicians who make promises based on fantasies of what is possible. But as he assumes power, he finds that matters are quite different than he had thought. The problems are far more complex. The situation is really due to the effect of many powerful forces in society. All the politicians can truly promise us is that they will use the best possible judgment for the good of all as they get deeper into each matter. Shit's starting to sound like fiction now. This evolutionary aspect of life is really that any of us can promise ourselves, and this is self-knowledge, will protect us from disillusionment. This is the safety of the open mind position, which is called beginner's mind in Zen practice. When we are open-minded, meaning like, fuck, my pride has gotten me into this problem and that problem and so on and so on. In this way, we do not box ourselves into the pain of defending lost causes. It's like, fuck, I need to change instead of holding this stance. This is very true in areas we think are based on strictly factual and observable data, such as... Get back here. Field of science. Actually, science deals with hypotheses, and scientific opinion is constantly in the process of flux and change. Scientific opinion, much to the surprises of laypersons, is also subject to fads, passing popularity, paradigm blindness, and political pressure. For instance, in the field of psychiatry, the subject of relationship between nutrition, blood chemistry, and brain function and mental illness was not popular in the past. The scientists and clinicians who worked in this area found themselves to be in the out group. As time passed, it proved there was a value in this field of investigation. Geez, mind body. I wonder how it works with our thoughts and emotions. Popular scientific opinion changed. Important discoveries were made, and whole industries came into being to provide products in which utilize the basic findings of the relationship between nutrition and brain function. Duh. The subject is now accepted and as respectable. So, geez, talk about the dark ages, like 20 years ago. So clinicians and scientists can do research in that area to be accepted as part of the in-group. Pride, therefore, is also responsible for holding up scientific progress. What the fuck is... global warming theories, and he ends it there. Pride blinds us to many things that we would be profoundly beneficial. To a prideful mind, to accept them would be inferring that we are wrong. The more inwardly powerful we really are, the more flexible we become, so that we are open to all is beneficial. Pride prevents us from seeing that which is totally obvious. People die by the thousands because of their pride. They literally give up their health and life itself because of it. Addicts and alcoholics will go to their death because of the denial of the inherent in pride. Other people have the problem, not me. Pride prevents us from recognizing our own limitations and accepting them, that, the help we need to overcome them. Our pridefulness isolates us. When we let go of pride, help comes into our life to address the problems which we are struggling with. We can experiment and prove that the truth of that principle by picking one area in which we have difficulty throughout surrendering all the pride involved. When we do that, some surprising things begin to happen. Letting go of pride unlocks the door to our receiving that which is the most beneficial to us. Are we willing to let go of pride and feeling superior to others? When we are willing to let go of the pseudo-security of pride, we experience the real security that comes with courage, self-acceptance, and joy. All right, that's the end of pride. Ooh, next chapter, courage. I'll give a little sample for next time. So courage. The hallmark of courage is the knowledge and feeling, I can. It is a positive state in which we feel assured, skillful, adequate, capable, alive, loving, and giving, with an overall zest for life. We are capable of humor, activity, confidence, and clarity. In this state, we feel centered, balanced, flexible, happy, independent, and self-sufficient. We can be inventive, creative, and open. And in courage, there's a lot of energy, action, letting go, capacity to be there, to be spontaneous, resilient, resourcefulness, and cheerful. In this state, we can be very effective in the world. That's for next time. Thanks for watching or listening.